And again, it's all about the stigma and it's all about how the community is going to look, how your parents is going to look. Do you worry so much about how you're going to look versus the life of your child? You want to ask yourself that as a parent. What matters most? Is it your child or what people are going to say or the label that's going to put? So if your child loses that battle with depression, do you still worry about what people are going to say?
Welcome to the Unfiltered Minds podcast, the only culturally diverse podcast where we discuss ways to destigmatize mental health, as well as promote self-seeking behaviors amongst our youth and family members struggling with ADHD or depression. Now, here's your host, Jane Lebbie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unfiltered Mind podcast. This is the platform where we discuss ways to destigmatize mental health, as well as promote self-help seeking behaviors amongst our youth and their family members. I am super excited and pleased to welcome our guest today, Khadija. Welcome to the Unfiltered Mind podcast. As you have joined us to share your story, we hope our viewers and our listener will resonate with your story, what you're sharing today. The goal here is really to give somebody hope, because a lot of times what people with depression struggle with is hope. They lose hope. So as you have joined us today, before we kick this off, would you please be kind enough to tell us a little bit about you and what we're going to talk about today?
So thank you for welcoming me to the platform. I was honored just to be asked to come here. So my name is Khadija, as you've already introduced. I'm a mother of three, born and raised in Sierra Leone, and I moved to the U.S. when I was a teenager after the war. I'm a registered nurse, and I have been for over 10 years. Recently received my master's, and I've been married for over 12 years.
Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. And you have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
I happen also to work with you, Khadija, at the hospital, because when I was a respiratory therapist, you were a nurse. So I have that pleasure of having that interaction with you. It was a great experience. And again, I really thank you for joining us today and wanting to be so vulnerable and by sharing your story. And the goal here is to share your story. Together, we'll build a thriving community, and hopefully people can listen to your story and help them to strive to be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely. And I knew how vulnerable I was. And if I had someone, or just to hear someone's story that would have motivated me, it would have given me hope. So I decided to come in today and obviously be vulnerable again to say, hey, you look like me, you may not even look like me, but we share something in common and there is hope. So willing and ready to share my story, and hopefully that would help someone in their journey.
Thank you. So, with that said, we're going to kick off with our first question. Let's talk about the time you noticed you were struggling mentally, and who did you confide in at that time?
Well, the first time I really didn't realize something was wrong, I was at the time the first year in university. I attended George Mason University where I got my bachelor's in nursing. It was my roommate's mom who came to visit, and she recognized the sadness in me, which I didn't even see. And she saw that I was very withdrawn. I wouldn't say much. She started just talking to me. Hey, how are you? What's your name? She showed a genuine interest in me and where I was from. And that led to one conversation to the other. And immediately she just asked me, you're such a beautiful girl. Are you okay? Just that one sentence, are you okay? I immediately shed tears. For the first time, someone saw something that I myself could not see. And so I started crying. And so she asked me, are you okay? And I confided in her that I really am not. And this was the first time somebody asked me if I was really okay. So I told her like I feel sad all the time. Sometimes it's hard for me to get out of bed. Even when I'm studying, I don't tend to retain anything. And I remember that first year in my college, I had like pretty much D's and F's. And I consider myself, I wouldn't say I'm the smartest, but that wasn't me at all. And so that was affecting every aspect of my life. And the second time after that, after I had my third child, I was taken off birth control. I had all these hormonal changes. My sister in law at the time, I explained to her that I was having a lot of marital issues. And she, after talking to her for a few times, she realized, she said, I think there's more to just your marital issue. I think you probably should talk to somebody about this. So those were the two times I didn't realize it myself. It was somebody who was close to me that saw that pain that I couldn't see, I couldn't recognize.
Thank you for sharing that. The beauty of that is you actually have someone around who actually noticed something was wrong and was
Absolutely.
able to brought that to your attention. Not only brought it to your attention, you were actually able to take the necessary step because more than 10% of pregnant women who have just given birth experience postpartum depression. Depression itself is a common mental health disorder globally. We're talking about estimate of 5% of adults do suffer from depression. And sometimes people really don't know what to do. Survey have showed more women do suffer through depression. So it was nice for you to not only take the necessary step, but also you were able to listen to someone when they actually brought that up. Because a lot of times what we see in our community is people notice something is wrong with their family members, but they're afraid to say something. They're afraid to speak up. But in your case, somebody was able to address you and then you were able to take the necessary step. That was a beautiful story.
It absolutely was. And this kind of attests to it's not just the sufferer, but anybody else who's around you. Pay attention, you know, pay attention to the changes that's happening in the person that you dearly love or care for. So sometimes, even some of the issues that you would see people have, there's probably a deeper reason as to why these issues are happening. Also, I think part of it is also shame, not only for the sufferer, but also the person who's going through the depression. Because again, mental health is, I
It's a
would say,
very sensitive topic.
very sensitive topic.
Very.
So talk about it is to bring shame to yourself, is to bring shame not only to yourself, but to the people that are close to you, to the people that are around you. And that makes everybody uncomfortable to even bring up or talk about it. So I want to thank you for creating this platform. We have a space where we can talk and share about these issues that we all might have.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us and sharing your story. We're moving along to the next question. When I reached out to you, the hope was for you to refer a guest on my show. I had never had that experience that you had your own struggles yourself. And I sent you the questions. I said, these are the questions that I'm going to be asking you for the interview. And then you send them back to me right away. That shows how passionate you were. In that document, one of the questions were your symptoms. And when I read it, you describe one of the symptoms as your depression was so bad that your hair was falling off. And also, it was the worst part of it all was the pain you felt inside and you just wanted that pain to stop.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, elaborate on that?
Well, I think one of the things that I noticed was I stopped enjoying things. I would be around friends, I'll be around colleagues, and I would laugh. But deep within me, I just didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy activities, things that I, used to love. I didn't enjoy activities with my kids. So I would actually take them to activities. But deep within me, I was there, but my soul or was somewhere else. I didn't enjoy food. I would sleep for a few hours at a time and then I'll wake up and then I'll have all these thoughts in my head. So, lack of sleep, and we know how that's important. That's another symptom I experienced. Sometimes getting out of bed was just the hardest job to do. I didn't feel like eating. I just sometimes would watch TV and just burst in tears, or I'll be taking a shower and just cry. And there are times when it was a roller coaster of emotions. There are times when I'll laugh out loud and I'll seem like the happiest person in the room, but deep inside, it never felt that way. Sometimes I just sit and stare blankly, and a lot of times I just wanted to be alone. My hygiene wasn't the best. And if you know me, you know I'm the most organized, put together someone. And that just wasn't me. So I felt lack of energy, couldn't focus. When I was in college, I would study for hours, but I could not retain anything. I felt very sluggish. I felt like I lost so much weight. Like you said, when I mentioned my hair started falling off. So I would comb my hair and it would just fall off. So it's not just the mental part that this affects, but it affects you physically as well. Again, like I said, weight loss, lack of appetite. I then became very severely anemic. So it's not just depression part of it, it's also how it affects you physically, mentally, and how it affects other people around you. And a lot of times I just wanted the pain to go away, because if there was nothing for me to enjoy, if it was hard for me to get out of bed, how can I live with this pain? How I just wanted it to stop. And I have to force myself to do things. And the thing that most people don't understand, when you are in depression, you would see me up dancing, laughing with family members, and the next minute I'm in my corner going through the pain. So at some point, it felt like I was suffering in silence. And sometimes the people who were close to me thought, oh, she has an attitude, she is not supportive. But I was going through my own battles that I couldn't get out of to be able to be there for others. And so there is a mask, I would say, that I had. So this mask is a face that I put out to the world, but then behind the mask, there was a pain. There was a deep pain. There was a deep shame. There was a deep emotional, physical pain that I was going through. And so you can see someone seem happy, but deep down they're depressed. So just asking, are you okay? And not just to say if you're okay, like, are you really okay? And show a genuine interest. That goes a long way.
Can you repeat that again? Are you really okay?
Are you really okay? Are you really okay?
That sounds more like you really mean it. When you
Yes,
just ask somebody, are you okay? We get asked that a lot, but are you really okay? That opens the discussion up, right? For a deeper connection and for a deeper discussion. But thank you for sharing that. So if somebody's watching this, those are the signs. A lot of times we call ourselves slay queen. We have the makeup on, we have the nice house, we have the nice car, educated, but you still struggling inside with the mask. You don't want to talk about it, and because the stigma around it and the negative perception around it prevent people from talking about it. So
absolutely. And the stigma is, again, you're depressed, and it's this label that you now carry with you. But that label is only temporary. And I say that standing here today because that was only a moment. I wouldn't really say a moment, but that was a phase in my life that I was going through, and I was able to come out of it. So that label and that stigma is only there while you're suffering. But what I want to share today is that you're able to get out of that moment, and it does not last forever. And that label, is only there. And it shouldn't
mhm.
even be a label. This is a journey you're going through, just like with life. There are ups and there are downs. And there are moments when you have those downs. Just know that you can climb that hill. And so, just anybody out there who is listening can attest that it's only a moment. Sometimes you feel you want it to end, but just know there's hope.
Yes, and I like that. And to end with that, I would also like to emphasize we love labels because labels saves lives. If you know you're depressed, like the people, we want a lot of representation. You know people around you that are going through the same struggles. It helps identify a group of people that can actually relate to you. That's why they have small groups. They have individual therapies and they have group therapies. Group therapies is
Absolutely.
you can express yourself. And then you look at somebody and say, are you going through that too? I'm also going through this. You guys can
Yeah.
share experience and embrace each other. So thank you.
Yes.
So we love labels help save lives.
We love the labels, but you don't want to feel like that label defines who you are. It is a label because, again, you have to have your name. That's a label. The position you hold is a label. Depression is a label also because you have to put a name to what you're going through. But don't take that as a negative thing in your life.
I agree. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about the process. So your roommate's mom found out that something was wrong with you. How did you initiate the diagnostic process? I know you have experienced some symptoms of depression. Did you go to a primary care physician, a licensed therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist? How was that process like for you?
Well, initially, I needed to accept somebody saw something in me I didn't see. And once I was able to accept that I was going through this phase of my life, I was able to then reach out, found the resources that were available. At school at the time, George Mason, they had a free counseling services for students, which I didn't know about. But it was only that moment, me realizing that I have something going on, I was able to call student services and ask, about counseling. And they were able to direct me to a counselor that I started, talking with on a weekly basis. At first, it started as a consultation. Once she was able to evaluate, she then decided, okay, I'm going to see you twice a week. And then we then ended up being, once a week and then once a month, to the point where I felt I didn't need it at that time. But also, sometimes these resources are available, but we're not able to access it. Sometimes just talking to someone, going through customer service information, you will be able to have so many information out there. The denial part was the hardest because I didn't want that label. Again, I didn't want that label. I didn't want to be seen as this. But once I was able to get past that, I was able to then reach to the resources that are available. And also, as a woman and as a mother and as a wife, there's so much expectation from you. You are expected to be the nurturer. You have to nurture your children. You have to be, you're labeled the mother. Especially in our community, we are put to a higher standard. I am the youngest of boy, but still, oh, you're the mother of the family. So you have to carry that weight of being not only a woman, but a woman that carries the family, a woman that carries your kids. So that also was something that I had to say, as much strength as I hold, it is okay that sometimes you need help yourself. And it is okay that you carry all of this and there's so much strength in you, but you also need somebody to carry you from time to time. After high school, after I had my children, I currently have Kaiser Permanente, and I reached out to them. So we also need to know what these providers do, right? A psychiatrist is the one that actually would prescribe the medication for you if medication is needed. But then you have a therapist who's somebody that you can talk to go through and help you manage some of the issues that you with, talk about it, find ways to manage it. So I was able to talk to a licensed therapist. First, I didn't realize. I reached out to my primary doctor, and she said, well, maybe it's hormonal changes. You're no longer on birth control. You just had a child. Let's put you on progesterone. So I was put on progesterone. We did all these blood tests. That didn't work. And then she said, well, maybe you need to do more of exercise, or you need to take some more vitamins. Let's check your iron levels. They did all of these things. And so, from the medical standpoint, they wanted to fix that. But really, it's due to the depression that was affecting my physical form. See how that sometimes even the doctor's there to help you, but they need to understand, again, we also need to look beyond just the physical. We need to look also within the mental. So that was another aspect. I have tried everything physical to fix this problem, but it was never going away. It was still there. It was only until I started talking to a therapist that I was able to get the help I needed.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. You did mention the first really place to really start for resources when you start feeling those symptoms is really your primary care physicians for them to just rule out anything physical.
Yes.
So if somebody's watching this and medication route is what they want to go with, maybe a psychiatrist would be your option. But if you want to go like the holistic approach, again, a therapist probably would be your first choice. If you don't know, absolutely know what's wrong with you, a psychologist, because they're skilled in
Yes.
differential testing. So if you don't know if you have anxiety, if you don't know if it's depression, ADHD, they're the ones to go to.
Yes.
So if you're watching this, you don't know where to go. If you don't want to go to the medication route, you go to a psychologist. Holistic approach, natural way, you go to a therapist. So with that said, DJ, can you briefly tell us about what treatment worked for you? Because we have therapy, individual therapy, counseling session, medication. What worked for you briefly?
So for me, the one thing that worked for me, exercise is a big one. I started walking, I will go to the gym. I started to feel energetic. I started to feel good about myself. The other thing that helped is support. And I'm not going to hold this lightly. You need support, and you don't just need someone to say, oh, I'm here. No, you need someone to listen, who is not going to judge you, who is not going to say, well, you have the house, the car, the job, the kids, what else do you want in life? And it's not about that. It is about how you feel inside. So that support system, finding someone who's going to be that support for you, someone you can call just to listen to you. You said earlier, it doesn't have to be family members. It could be a group session. It can be, going online to listen to other people. It could be, for me, also journal. I used to write a lot in a book about how I was feeling because I had all the shame. I would write it down. That was another way to release all of that thing that, was going through my head without feeling like someone is judging me. And also music. I started meditation. And one other thing that I realized, I started to notice if there were triggers. So is there certain people that I'm around that makes me feel a certain way? Is it certain places that I'm around? Is it something that reminds you, something that starts to make you feel uncomfortable? I started to learn those triggers for me. And that in that way I'm able to manage how I react. I'm able to manage if I need to be in that space, or do I need to be around these people. And not to say there are, anyone is terrible, but you just need to find that space for yourself where you feel whole and you feel heard. So those were some of the things that I had. And again, you need unconditional love, whether it's from your children, family, with no judgment, just somebody who's there to listen and not give you what they think the answer is or the quick fix of the problem is, but just to listen to your story, listen to your journey, listen to you go through the pain. Someone you can just cry with, and somebody that can cry with you. So support, counseling helped. I was able to sit and talk with somebody about some of the issues that I was going through, how I felt. And so that also was a big part. So for me, I wouldn't say it's one thing, but it's a combination of things that helped me navigate that process. And also understanding that I have been depressed once. And again, I had it postpartum. There's a likelihood it might happen again. But this time, at least I know what my triggers. Again, I know what the feeling is like. And I also have more resources. So I feel empowered at this time to, again, share my story with others and be able to empower myself. The other part that was hard for me to do was to let go. And what I mean by that is to not be in control or feel like I am superwoman. I was just say, let me let go. I need to take care of me. And if I am able to take care of me, then I'm able to better take care of anybody else. So I needed to look inward and say, okay, Khadija, what do you need to do to get you to that space where you'll be a better mom, be a better wife, a better sister, a better aunt to somebody else versus just going with emotion. So again, you need to then focus on yourself heal yourself, and in that way you're able to heal or be there for anybody else.
I say this all the time. That's where when you're in the plane, what did they tell you first? They say put your mask on first
Mask on.
before you help anybody else. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So we all come from a third world country where mental health is not openly discussed in the home, and you're mostly told, don't tell anyone what happens in this house. So you can't talk about your mental health struggles in your home with your parents. Most homes, African homes, and you can also they're also telling you don't tell anybody about family business outside of
Yes.
home. There's someone watching this today, a dad, a mom, or aunt, where their child has come to them and said, I am depressed. Something is wrong. You have experienced depression. You know it's real. What would you say to that parent that's in denial and just think their child is faking? Because you hear this a lot. She looks good. She had on makeup. She's looking good. She was here. Somebody saw her here and she was smiling. She was having fun. Like you said, it's all masked up. What would you tell them? Especially if a child is saying, I'm depressed. They said it to you. They wrote it down. But you still think they're lying. What would you say to that parent?
Is to stop. If you have nothing to say, don't say anything at that moment. Take a moment back and evaluate yourself as a parent before you respond, because sometimes just the one thing you say can put the child in a deeper slope. So just stop. If you are not knowledgeable or you yourself are not aware, make yourself aware. Read about it, learn about it, then ask them, is there anything I can do for you? How do you want me to support you? What is it that I can do for you? And that for me is a time for a parent to pay more attention, be more vigilant, be more present. And as we speak, like you said, we come from a community where no one wants to talk about it. And even me saying that I was depressed, I had a lot of people say, oh, don't label yourself that way, or don't say that. As we speak, they still say, do not say that. And for me, I have to, because this is how I'm able to help someone else. And again, it's all about the stigma, and it's all about how the community is going to look, how your parents is going to look. Do you worry so much about how you're going to look versus the life of your child? You want to ask yourself that as a parent. What matters most? Is it your child or what people are going to say or the label that's going to put? So if your child loses that battle with depression, do you still worry about what people are going to say? For me, it's about what's the priority. Your child should be the number one priority, and learn to listen, not just to listen to respond, but listen. Listen to help, listen to understand, listen to empathize. I think people say, oh, I feel sorry for her, but no, you want to empathize. Empathy is you trying to feel what that person is feeling. So, parents, please just listen. And if you are not aware, there's so many resources out there. Empower yourself. And you may have the naysayers who are going to come to you and say, why are you even encouraging that talk? Where are we from? We grew up from a hard life. There's nothing like depression. And I've heard people say, oh, it's because they've come to the United States. Now all of a sudden they talk about it. But in reality, there's so many people suffering in silence. And because they're not able to talk about it and they feel the shame, it's better to hide it. Let's put it under the rug. Then it's not seen. But then eventually, if it's not dealt with, you would see your child spiral out of control. Sometimes they revert to drugs, they revert to friendship that are engaged in activities that you as a parent would sit there and say, but I didn't raise you that way. Well, as a parent, you should have paid better attention and say, this was probably an outlet for your child to release that pain. Please, as parents, we have to listen and we just have to be there. And again, try yourself to evaluate what your biases are as a parent. If you feel biased, then learn those things, how to unlearn them to be able to be there for your child. Again, what's the most important thing? The life of your child. And so everything else you will deal with later. But at that time, I think that's the one thing parents need to do. Again, where we're from, if you then say, I'm vulnerable, I'm depressed, then you're seen as weak. And I actually now look at it and say, no, I'm actually strong enough to say, it's okay. This is my journey. And I have gone through this. It takes strength for you to be vulnerable, actually. It's the other way around when people think, oh, you're strong, being vulnerable as a weakness. No, actually, it is an absolute superpower to be vulnerable, to say, this is me, this is what I'm going through, and it's okay.
Thank you for sharing that, Khadija. I really appreciate that feedback. I remember when I was thinking about creating this platform, I reached out to a few friends. One of them asked me a good question. She said, "So I can come up to your show and talk about my problems?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "So that people can hear and learn from your story." She said, "What's in there for me? Like, what resources are you going to provide me?" And to myself, I was just saying to myself, I said, "She's probably missing the point. She's missing the whole point of it. I'm not a therapist. I have a child who also has ADHD, have mental disorders. And I remember when my son was diagnosed, I had no one to talk to about. I had no resources. Had I known somebody's child was diagnosed with ADHD, I probably would have reached out to them. We on this
Yes.
platform, we want as many representations as we can. The more we have people to share their story, the more people are going to relate. Oh, I know Khadija. Khadija was struggling with depression. This is what she did. And where did you get that information from? I got that information on the Unfiltered Mind podcast. And they can always have this. This can also be a resources that they can use. Podcast is another one. If you're into mental health, they have a lot of podcasts that you can search on iTunes, on the podcast platform that you can listen to. If depression is your thing, yeah, there's a lot of podcasts on depression. The
Yes.
CDC is a good resources, right?
Yes.
Also, you can also relate to that. They have the DSM-5, which is like the Bible for mental health. If you feel like this something is not right with you, you can open up the book and just review the symptoms that you're going through before you even seek professional help. But I really appreciate you sharing that. So, with that said, with what you went through, what is your perspective on mental health previously versus now, since you have experienced your own mental health struggles?
So, I have a family member that suffers from schizophrenia. And again, Sierra Leone, he was labeled as a witch. And just thinking about it, the treatment he received was absolutely inhumane as far as I'm concerned. But nobody knew what he was going through. He's then reverted to taking drugs. And then the punishment became worse because now it's this child who does not listen, who's doing this and who's doing that. And growing up, I didn't know about mental health because it was never something talked about. I think in Sierra Leone, there's only one mental hospital, and they refer to it as crazy, like you're crazy. It's a crazy yard, pretty much. So anybody that goes there is crazy. That was the idea I had. Like, okay, they're crazy. And so we would make fun of crazy people, we would laugh at them. They were seen as castaways. But now, when I look back at the journey that I've been, the growth that I've had, it's the awareness and the knowledge to know what really this is. I think people would empathize with you if you break your leg or you have surgery or you have other physical issues going on. But when it comes to mental, you're crazy. Okay, let's say we accept that. But what do you do for somebody who you love, somebody who you care for? So it really, my perspective have changed to answer that question. I grew up in a place where it's looked down, there's a caste, there's a label, it's a shame. It will say you're not spiritual enough if you are even saying that you are. But now it is a different perspective, and it's so passionate to me looking back and say, wow, this is what they suffered. And again, he only got the proper diagnosis when he moved to the United States. So imagine if he was still back in Sierra Leone, he would have never been diagnosed. He probably would have been killed and he'd probably be roaming the streets, no one to care for. But coming here to the United States, he was able to diagnose. And the only way they did that diagnosis was by asking questions. what was he like at this age? What was it like at this age? What is he like at this age? To kind of put together a timeline to say, oh, okay, this is what, and the behaviors, this is what he's going through. And I think that is a very powerful thing. That's why I said pay attention. Sometimes you may know somebody a year ago and they're not the same person now. So what has changed? What are these things? So for me, I have learned so much, and my perspective has changed completely on mental health. And whoever is watching this will say, oh, whatever, it's about awareness. The more you're aware and the more you empower yourself or want to learn, the more you know about it. But if you keep saying, oh, it's nothing, it's just a label, then you're never going to learn. You're never going to change that perspective about yourself. Never going to be able to help that loved one who's there, who needs you.
Yeah, you have to be open minded, right? As we grow, we change, and
Absolutely.
we have to adapt to those changes.
You have to.
You have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. You did mention about a book that I also read. I think it's Gary Chapman, The Love Languages.
Yeah.
So, what is
Yes.
your love language? Can I guess?
Yes.
Quality time.
Yes.
So, me and Khadija happen to have a mutual friend. So, from talking to that mutual friend, Mariam will always tell me, Khadija likes to visit. I never go visit her. She's always visiting. So, that's one. And what's another love language of yours?
I love touch,
Okay. Physical touch?
physical touch,
Yes.
and words of affirmation. So those are my three big ones. I'm not so much of a gift. I mean, I do gift, and I love to receive gifts, but for me, it's quality time.
We all love gifts.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. For me, spending that time with me, talking to me, getting to know me, let's talk behind the superficial. Let's go deeper. Because I want that relationship rather than just transactions. And I think that's what a lot of people do. It's okay, you do this for me, I do that for you, but not at a deeper level. And for
There's
me,
no
that
connection.
no, there's no connection. I thrive in that connection.
And it's funny
I do.
to add to that, a lot of times, a lot of groups I'm in, the kids, the children who are struggling, young adults who are struggling with mental health, one of the most things that they complain about, I can see that either their parents didn't know their love language. A kid might just want quality time and you giving them gift.
Yes.
A kids just want words of affirmation, right?
Yeah.
And then you give him physical touch. They don't want to be touched.
Absolutely.
They don't want, like my oldest, my son with ADHD, quality time, you forget it. He's not going to spend time with me. He wants to spend time with his friends. But if I do
Yes.
things, act of service, he's
Yes.
really going to say thank you. If I clean his room, he's going to say thank you.
Thank you.
If I give him a gift, he's going to say thank you. He's going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to put that. It's a great book, by the way, if anybody is interested. The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
I went to the library. They have love languages for children that you can read. The five love languages. So even as married couples, we struggle with that where, oh, my wife is difficult or your kids are difficult. Well, that's because you're not loving them the right way. You're not loving them the way they want to be loved.
Yeah.
Usually we love people the way we know.
We know, we think, right?
Yes, we think
What you
we
think is
know.
right for them, for your kids, that's what you do. But if it's
Correct.
not their love language, you're missing the point.
You are missing. So
Yeah.
it's saying, oh, I love to eat mango, but then I go buy you apples. Yeah, the effort is there to buy me an apple, but really that's not what I love. If you bring me a mango, you see I light up. It's the same thing with love language. If somebody is words of affirmation, tell them, I love you, I care for you. You got to tell that to your kid because that's what they thrive. Like you said, I have three kids. One of my kids is words of affirmation. I mean, he has all the words to tell you, the sweet words, because that's who he is.
Yes. He
And then I
thrives
have
by that.
another.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he feels fulfilled by just telling him how much you love him and care for him and give him those words. Whereas I have my girl, you can say all you want all day. It doesn't fulfill her at all, but you can do things for her and she'll do for you. So she'll water my plants in the morning and she'll always do the things for me. So now I've learned, even with my child, they all love differently. And so you have to be able to speak that language. And that would help somebody, especially in, if they're depressed. That goes a long way. And then there are other books too that I've read. I think I just want to touch on The Power of Now, Love Languages. You know, there are so many books out there now that you can read about depression and how to love somebody the way they need to be loved. And I think love goes a long way. It really does. If you're depressed, it really is the most powerful thing that's out there.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So, what habits do you currently have, or structure do you currently have in place to take care of your mental health in general?
I think one of the things is to accept what's there instead of saying I don't have it or I want to escape from the label. The other thing is just being courage enough to take care of myself is the one step. And to know that it's okay. Sometimes everything's not going to go your way, but it's okay. It's learning to accept and also recognizing the signs, knowing, okay, I am slipping back into that. What am I going to do about it? Asking for support. It's okay. And like I said, we as mothers and as women in society, we carry so much baggages. Sometimes just let go of those baggages and say, it's okay for me to get the help. I need help too. Sometimes positive support or self talk. Just tell yourself, I'm okay, I'm enough, I'm loved, I'm cherished, I'm beautiful. That too helps. And for me, having the help and support from my friends and family went a long way. So those are things that I currently do. And again, exercise. I exercise, even if I don't do it every day because there's so much going on in life. You have kids to worry about, you have to work, but you need to give at least an hour or two to yourself to say, this is just me. And this is me time. And it's okay for you to not be in everybody's business. It's okay to not go in everybody's function. Sometimes it's about you, and forget about what anybody else is going to say, because guess what? There's always something to say, but you need to be
Always.
able to take care of you.
There's always something to say.
Always.
Always. Yeah. Yeah. You can't please everyone, right?
No,
If you want to people please, it's really gonna affect your mental health.
it will.
It will.
It will. And it
It
doesn't just
will.
affect mental health, it affects the people that are close to you, because we tend to please the outside people and then in the detriment of the ones who are close to you more. So let's say I see Jane once a month, but then I want to go out of my way to please Jane. I only see her once a month. What about the person who's there 24/7? Please that person. Not to say you got to be mean to Jane, but priorities. What is the priority in your life?
Definitely have to get that straight. So we've come to our last question, Deja. We have someone here today, black or
Okay.
brown person, who is struggling to even go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or clinician. They don't want to be diagnosed because they don't want that on their records. What are some words of encouragement or advice would you give them?
So, to the person who's going through mental health struggles, be it depression, anxiety, it's okay. It is okay to know that you're not okay. It is okay to know that you're not okay. It is okay to know that you need help. It is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to go out and seek help because, like I said throughout this, it's about you and not anybody else. And to people who are around you, listen, love them for who they are. When they're quiet, check on them. If you don't hear from them, call. If they cry, cry with them. And do not dismiss the pain. Say, oh, it doesn't matter. You have this and you have that. It's not about the material things. Because if it's about that, you have people who have millions of dollars that have unfortunately committed suicide. So it's not about the money, it's about the pain that is inside. So listen to them. Don't try to undermine or minimize what they feel. And a lot of times, what I hear people say is, oh, you should feel lucky. You have so many people out there who don't even have food to eat. Or you should feel lucky. And I do understand, I feel lucky. However, this is still my struggle. So it's not about everybody else. Again, it's about that person and what their struggle is. So you want to focus on that person versus trying to minimize what they're experiencing to feel like that's going to help the situation. Actually, it doesn't. It actually makes it even worse. So listen to them, just be there for them. And I remember, like you said, my cousin was going through difficult times. In the morning, all I'll do is say, hey, I'm here. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for a walk? If that's what you want to do, fine. Do you just want to sit there and talk? Don't say anything? I'm here. All I was there is her. She needed was my presence, and just to know there's somebody there who is there for them. And that's all I was. It wasn't like I did anything special. I just made myself present. So you can do that for your loved one. And saying that, oh, you're not grateful for life or you should feel lucky, it actually takes you deeper into depression when you hear people say that, because it's not about that. It is not about you buying me the things. It is not about me getting the excellent job. It is not about me having healthy kids, which I'm grateful for all of those things, but it is more than that. So learn to listen and not judge and not feel like you always have to have the answer for them. Sometimes do not give any answers. Just be there and listen. Just try to feel their pain, empathize with them. Also be patient. There are days when you may not like that person. There are days when that person might be impatient. They might snap at you, but just take a step back. But just know that it's because I love you and it's because I care for you. I'm still going to be there. If you don't know, read about it. So we always say ignorance is not an excuse. So to say I don't know, that's not an excuse to me. If you want to know and if you're interested in knowing, you would find the resources available. So don't say, oh, I don't know, or let's leave it to the professionals. Yes, the professionals have their own part to play, but you as a family member, you as a loved one also have your own part that you play in them. And your part is tremendous, more than you know. Also ask questions. Don't give solutions. If they ask you for a solution, give them a solution. But if they're asking just to be there, it's like people are trying to fight logic with emotions. It doesn't work. So you want to bring emotions to fight emotions. If you want to bring logic, it's like I'm asking you for an advice, give me advice. But if I'm coming to you with an emotional pain, then come back to me in an emotional way versus trying to fix it with your solution. So don't do that. If you're not sure what to do, like I said, give support where it's needed. Love them even harder, especially when they're going through things like that. Be present, be attentive. So it's not about the person's attitude. They're not faking it, because I've heard people say that, oh, it's all an act, you're faking. No, it's not. It is real. And so just be there and love them. Love them even more.
That was wonderful.
And love yourself even more.
Thank you so much, Deidre. Deidre, on the Unfiltered Mind podcast, we just want to say
thank you for having me.
We amazingly thank you for your time and being so vulnerable. And we hope that our viewers and our listeners will resonate with what you have shared here today and just give them some hope. We want people to watch this and strive to be the best version of themselves. We don't want people to be surviving. I will ask you, Khadija, how are you doing? You say, I'm okay. That means you're surviving, right?
Yes.
We want people to thrive. We want people to strive to be the best version of themselves. So again, we thank you so much for being vulnerable, and thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you too for creating this platform where you can share and make sure that stigma that we hold is gone. And so I really appreciate you putting this together.
Thank you for listening to Unfiltered Minds podcast. If you love what you're learning on our podcast, we ask that you please join the Unfiltered Minds community by subscribing and sharing our podcast on YouTube. Or you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Our dedicated team of ADHD coaches are committed to making a positive impact on the lives of our listeners. Through our thought-provoking podcast, we offer valuable resources, PBT training for ADHD, and a supportive community that understands the journey of mental health challenges. Also, you can visit our website at theunfilteredminds.com, where you can sign up to be a guest on our podcast, as well as sign up for our 8-week parent behavior training course on ADHD.